But the point is, and we just wrote an article that was published in Lancet on this topic, but this was an article in the same journal of 500,000 Chinese, and this is physical activity for an hour, up to an hour. This is the red line is moderate activity, light to moderate activity. Vigorous activity is here, and even vigorous is less than 10 METs. But you can see this is mortality reduction. You get the most benefit at about 40 to 50 minutes, and then there's a rather broad, sort of sudden plateau. A really interesting study that I was part of, and my best friend from down in New Orleans was the lead author on this study, was very insightful in this regard. This is the U-shaped curve we're talking about. And so they looked at 50,000 people in the Cooper Clinic, and they followed them for up to 35 years, like 20 years of follow-up. And they found among the runners, they had a 19% lower risk of death than the non-runners. But among the runners, those who ran at moderate speeds, moderate distances, and moderate frequencies did the best. And so that means 2 to 5 times a week did better than people who just did once, or 7 times, or 6 times. People who ran at speeds around 10-minute miles did the best. This is like 20 years of follow-up. This is pretty darned good data. And people who were the distances. What do you think? What do you think the best distance was? More is not better. It's like how many miles a week you think? Not more than 20. Yeah, 5 to 20. You could run 1.5 miles 3 times a week, and you'd be at the bottom of that U-curve. It's amazing. And so when you run faster, longer, more often, you don't get more benefits. You get less benefits. And if you start running marathons, you start getting to look like the non-exercises with respect to your cardiovascular risk. So let's just talk a few minutes about what happens when you go out. When you're sitting here, we're talking about METs, your cardiac output's 5 liters a minute. When you go out and you're a trained athlete and you're hammering up a hill full speed, or you're running a marathon, this is about 1 gallon a minute at rest. It's more like 6 times that. A trained athlete, Lance Armstrong, Miguel Indurain, the best athletes in the world, will generate 35 to 40 liters a minute. This is massive cardiac output. And you can train up to do it, but after a while, it takes its toll. And what happens is this volume starts stretching the heart out, and the myocardial cells start getting pulled apart. After a few hours and a few decades of doing this every day, it starts pulling the muscles apart and causing tears in the muscle. And you see troponin elevations in up to 50% of people after a marathon, even trained marathoners. Half of them. A troponin is what I measure. If we come in and you're having a heart attack, we measure the troponin to see if there's been heart damage. It's a sine qua non. If you have a high troponin, you've had heart damage. Half marathoners have heart damage by the end of the race. And you can replicate this perfectly well in running rats, running mice. You have to run them for like over an hour a day, really hard for about 4 months, and you'll see this scar tissue form, and it makes the heart. These are MRI images. It's hard to see, but you get this scattered fibrosis in the right ventricle and the atria from this volume sort of stretching the heart, causing accelerated aging in the heart.
This isn't hard to understand. Your heart is an organ, and if you abuse it, it's going to take damage. If it takes damage, it's going to fail quicker. And this is exactly what James O'Keefe is talking about. This is exactly what the science is showing us. Now, this is cardio related. So if you're an MMA fighter or a boxer or whatever it might be, or you're in any sport that requires that you do a lot of cardio, like football as an example, or basketball, you're at a risk for heart damage. However, the average person who does cardio isn't going to do the amount of cardio that a marathon runner does, or that a professional athlete does. So generally speaking, you're going to be at the good place, where you're getting the benefits of exercise without damaging your heart. The thing that's more popular than cardio, though, in modern society is going to the gym. Going to the gym, and more specifically pursuing building muscle, is not only something that we look up to in modern society, it is also something that is deemed as healthy. So just going to the gym is looked at as something healthy. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why that isn't healthy, why there are many things that are much more important when it comes to health than going to the gym and doing resistance exercise. A while ago, I was watching a video by the channel Physionic where he was presenting a study talking about resistance exercise and how much resistance exercise you should do, so how much you should go to the gym, what time you should spend in there to be as healthy as possible per week. The funny thing is that because I've been in the health jungle for a long time, I already knew the answer. I don't need any studies to understand these kinds of things, but you might do. You might need this to understand that this is the case. You might not be satisfied with a explanation from me. So we're going to look at it. And the basic gist of it is, this is a meta-analysis of meta-analyses. This is a super ultra big study with lots of data. So any scientist who looks at this will say, very good. They'll be very satisfied with the study. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about the validity. So what they found is that if you do 40 minutes of resistance exercise per week, that gives you the lowest risk of mortality. Anything above that, and your risk increases. And if you go too much, so you do 5 workouts per week, like bodybuilders usually do, like the gym bros usually do, your mortality risk increases to the point where it's higher than those who don't go to the gym at all. Now that's just all-cause mortality. If you look at cancer, it's the same pattern. If you look at heart disease, it's the same pattern. If you look at diabetes, that's the only one where the risk keeps decreasing as you go and do more resistance exercise. And that's because glucose utilization and resistance exercise go hand in hand. The more you exercise, the easier it is for your body to not mess up your bloodstream with sugar molecules and for you to actually utilize that sugar. This is absolute unquestionable evidence showing that it's a U-curve or a bell-shaped curve when it comes to the benefits of resistance exercise. So what do I mean by this? If you don't do any exercise, you're over here. If you do exercise for, let's say, 40 minutes, you get the benefits. You get all the benefits. If you do more than 40 minutes, you slowly go down. So 50 minutes, 60 minutes, and then at a certain point, you're either lower or at the same point as those who don't do any exercise. So what we're trying to do, if we're not trying to build muscle or we have athletic goals, is to hit the amount that we need to hit per week, and that's it. Now remember, this is an average. Some people might need a little bit more, some people might need a little bit less. But when I show you how to approach this without looking at science, with just intuitively looking at what your body's feeling, you're going to realize that it's much simpler than 40 minutes. Before we move on, I just want to explain why it is that I already knew that excessive resistance exercise is a bad thing. So your body can be looked at as an economy. And what you're doing with resistance exercise is you're breaking down a bunch of stuff for it to be rebuilt. You're going to get nutrients from the food you eat. If you have more things that you need to repair, then you need to eat more. So your body will naturally tell you that you need to eat more. As we know, and this is a very, very basic principle, if you eat less, you live longer. And that's because the more you use your digestive system and the more you need to rebuild cells, the more energy you're using up and the faster you will die. By working out, you're destroying your muscle cells, among other cells. You're also destroying your bones, and then both of those are going to be rebuilt. And you're doing that over and over again. And you have to remember that if you have a wound, your body will prioritize that over taking care of the minute details that would make sure that your liver is more optimal or your brain is more optimal. So what happens is your body's constantly repairing damage while neglecting the rest of the body. So if you've got pollution because of, well, you inhaled this or you ate that within your liver or your brain, your body will need to ignore those things because it has more pressing matters. While if you only resistance exercise to the point where your body can handle it and it has enough resources and energy and enough, rest time where, it doesn't need to repair any muscles and it can focus on other things within your body, then your body will not be as stressed out. It will be able to deal with all of those things. So now you understand why I'm calling the body an economy. You're using up nutrients excessively. You need those nutrients to repair the organ damage that is coming from the pollution and the junk food that is present in modern society, from the EMF, from the stress, all of these things. You can't afford to use up those nutrients through rebuilding muscle because, again, rebuilding muscle will require a lot of nutrients. Again, it's a nutrient economy. Now I'm going to tell you about a very important principle that came as an insight to me and that I naturally wrote down in my book, The 6 Health Commandments. I have included this section in the 10 Dietary Rules, which is a free PDF. Just go to the description, click on my website, and then put in your email and your name, and you'll get the PDF sent right to your mail. And again, it's completely free and it's a very good read. I call this insight the dog principle because what happens if you don't walk a dog? It becomes agitated and more aggressive. It gets all of this built up energy that needs to be released. Well, with human beings, if you look at us closely, the exact same principle applies. But people are very unintuitive when it comes to this. They don't realize that, okay, if I want to exercise, I should exercise. If I don't want to exercise, I shouldn't exercise. They think that, especially in modern society, if I don't want to exercise, I should exercise because I'm a lazy bitch. That's what they think. The amount of exercise you need is the amount of exercise you think that you need. The amount of exercise you feel like you need, okay? If you're very unhealthy and you don't have any energy, then your body's telling you that the problem isn't that you're not exercising. The problem is that somewhere in your body, something isn't working. And so we can't give you this energy for movement, for the muscles, for whatever it might be, for hormone production. We need to repair something. You have something going on. So if you look at people with a disease, like cancer as an example, well, they're very tired. Anyone who is sick is very tired. If you're tired a lot and you don't like moving, then you're unhealthy. You've got problems that are unrelated to the fact that you don't exercise. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we've got people who sit inside and they feel like, shit, I need to move. I want to go out and run, or I want to hit a bag, or I want to do something that involves exercise. And so what do? They put their clothes on and they go and work out. Okay? Now some people are going to ignore the tired signal. Some people are going to ignore the I want to move signal, and they're going to think that they're just anxious or agitated or angry for some reason. No. In many cases, you just need to go out and move because you've got excess hormonal activity that will go down if you go and exercise. Usually you'll see that these people have elevated cortisol levels if they don't work out. Now that's the dog principle. You walk your dog because your dog needs walking. You don't walk it because you should do that, because that's something you learn. No, there's a purpose behind it. So it's the same with exercise. Exercise if there's a purpose behind it. If your body's giving you the signal that says, go and move. If it doesn't give you that signal, which it doesn't do, as an example, when you're sick, then you shouldn't exercise. Now that you understand the amount of time you should exercise per week, let's look at the exercise itself. What criteria should your exercise, or your type of exercise, I should say, satisfy? And so the first criteria is actually very simple. What do you like? I, as an example, like boxing. I really like hitting stuff. I have a hitting addiction. I have a mattress behind my computer, and every time I see it, I hit a 1-2. You might like football or basketball or tennis or badminton or boxing, just like me. You can go on hikes, you can go on walks with your dog. Just remember that what you like and the exercise you need to do is the exact same thing. Now, what do I mean by this? If you do any activity, that's the only activity you need to do, okay? As long as it's pretty diverse, so you're getting some cardiovascular work and you're getting some resistance work. You don't want it to be too one-sided, but generally speaking, whatever you do is going to work out both things. This is great news. Why? Because if you don't like exercising, but you really like going on walks, there is a theoretical amount of walking you can do every day that will optimize your health. That makes it so that you don't need to do any other type of exercise unless you want to be good at something. You see, if you want to be able to pull yourself up when you're hanging from the side of a building, you have to train for that. And that might increase your health by making you not die. Or as an example, if you train your neck, that might protect you against injuries in a car crash, neck injuries. So these are things you have to consider, but still, from a physiological standpoint, if you like walking and you don't like doing anything else, you can walk a certain amount every day and that will be perfect for you. Again, if you really enjoy an activity, base your exercise around that. Don't do anything else, because why would you? Don't waste time doing things that you don't like. Do what you do like. The second criteria is danger. Now you see, I like hitting the bag, the double-end bag, and the heavy bag. But if I do sparring and I get hit in the jaw and the head and the ears and the eyes, that's organ damage, okay? Primarily to the brain, but it could also be the nose, the eyes, the ears. You can get cauliflower ears and that will cause pain and it will make your hearing worse. So consider these kinds of things, that although you like this activity and you're getting exercise from it, are there things that might make it dangerous? And so alter it. If you do boxing, don't do hard sparring, do very light sparring, and don't go and fight professionally because you're posing threats to your head, to your brain. You should also see if the activity is stressful, if it causes joint damage, or if it might lead to your death. So as an example, what I did, which was really stupid during 2019 and 2020, is I did a lot of lake cold exposure. But not only cold exposure, I did swimming. So I went to the nearest lake, which was really cold by the way, we're talking winter months. There wasn't ice. So the months where there isn't any ice here in Sweden on the lakes, that's when I went. I went there, took off my clothes, I had already put on my swimming trunks, and then I went and swam in that water. And what I did was I held my breath below the water too. So at any point, I could, fall unconscious and then die. The cold exposure itself is a stressful thing. So yes, I'm swimming in the water and I'm getting exercise, resistance exercise, because you have to push the water through the swimming. But I'm also exposing myself to the cold, which tells my body that we're in a very, very extreme survival situation. So my body thinks that I'm dying. And how many resources do you think I'm burning up when I'm doing that? Many times I also stayed in the sauna for far too long after having done a gym workout, because my gym had a sauna, so I started using it at a certain point near the end of me going to the gym. Again, I don't do that anymore. And, you can also fall unconscious in there and die, because it's too hot. You'll die eventually. And this was in the morning, so I was completely alone. What I'm trying to say is, by mentioning these things, is don't be stupid and don't do things that are too stressful to your body. And again, this is dose dependent. You can do both of these things that I just mentioned, but in lower quantities. Other than that, you should also consider the impact that your chosen form of exercise or the activity that you like to do has on your joints. So as an example, if you like to punch a heavy bag like me, well, these things are delicate. You need to baby your hands, as they say. So you need to wrap your hands and you need to have good gloves. If you don't do those things, then you're going to hear cracking whenever you use your hands for the rest of your life. And you want to avoid these stupid mistakes that one might make when they're young. So if you go to the gym, be very mindful of your technique. If you do cardio, be very mindful of what shoes you're wearing, how much you're running, and so on and so forth. If you're a boxer, again, be very mindful of your hands. If you do any kind of activity, let's say gymnastics, be very aware of how your elbows feel, how your shoulders feel, how your neck feels, because with gymnastics more specifically, there's a lot of stress, a lot can go wrong. But if you do it in an intelligent manner, then you won't get injured, because you'll be doing injury prevention, you'll be doing the activities, the things that you can do that feel perfect, that never pose any problems to you, and you won't overdo it. So be very mindful of these things, because otherwise you'll injure yourself. For the sake of deepening our understanding, let's look at a very interesting question that's very debated across the internet. Lifting versus cardio. So here's the thing. Both are alright. The difference, if you do everything according to the instructions that I've given in this video, is that you'll be developing different things. So you can also choose exercise based on the things you want to develop, not just the things that you find fun. So if you do cardio in a good dose that won't mess up your heart or your joints or whatever it might be, then you will get a stronger cardiovascular system that can handle oxygen transport in a much better manner. So you'll be able to run farther, and the joints in your legs will also be strengthened. You'll also get stronger feet. If you do lifting, you'll get stronger muscles, more specifically within the movements that you're doing. So if you only train legs, you won't get a stronger upper body, right? So whatever lift it is that you're doing, you'll get stronger in that specific movement, in that specific angle, in that specific body position. Regardless of the exercise you do, there are different activity zones. So you might have heard of the green zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone. So the green zone is you're taking a brisk walk to a very light jog. You can still speak when you're doing the activity. Generally speaking, the green zone is going to be the best zone. Again, the runners who ran fast, who were in these zones, they got heart damage, while these guys got the most benefits. Those who ran slowly and in a very good dose, so they didn't run too many miles per week. Then you've got this zone, which is you're running, but you're running kind of fast. So for me, as an example, this zone would be the zone where I'm trying to run a kilometer as fast as I can. That might be the same for you, or you might not even be able to run a kilometer. Again, I don't know your circumstances. But for me, that would be the case. So you can run a long period, you can do the thing for a while, but still you feel like your lungs are heavy throughout the period in which you're doing this thing. The red zone is all out, okay? 100-meter dash, you're trying to score a goal and there are defenders behind you, you're hitting the heavy bag with all you've got, and it's the end of the round. This is super duper activity. You can do this once in a while, but it's not healthy, and I'll tell you why. You see, your body tells you when something is bad for you, and if you feel severe pain within your chest when doing something, then your body's telling you that what you're doing is not good. We want you to stop. It's sending you pain signals because you're hurting your body. And yes, you can hurt it through doing these activities. The reason why we don't understand this is because we've been told that being in the red zone is healthy. If there's pain, there's a problem. Doesn't matter if you're being hit in the head or if you're in the red zone. If you feel pain in some area, that means that your body's telling you to stop doing what you're doing. Something that I think you've missed is that exercise isn't the important part. What's important is that you carry a body all the time. You're operating this thing all the time, and whatever your mind is doing is influencing how it works. So from a health perspective, if you're constantly creating stressful scenarios, you're going to die quicker because you're using up a bunch of energy and your body thinks that you're dying. Again, because if you imagine a lion attacking you and you make that really vivid, your body will react as if that's happening. As an example, when you're trying to sleep and then suddenly you feel like you're falling backwards, what happens to your heart? If you want to be peaceful and relaxed and calm, then you have to work toward those things. You have to be aware of those things at all times, whenever you're inhabiting the body. So when you're sitting down right now, look at any things within your body, like your legs, your arms, your head, your neck, your chest, your stomach, that are tense. Might even be your pelvis. Look at anything that's tense right now, and realize that if you were to relax that, not only would your mind be calmer, you'd also feel better in general. Your body would feel nicer to be in. So just by being aware of these things, you'll be much happier. You'll be a much happier human being because, again, you'll be in a state of relaxation all the time. And ideally, any animal should be in this state. Because, again, chronic stress, we know what that does. And we know why it does the things it does. Another extremely useful trick that I learned from Peter Ralston is that to have a calm body or a relaxed body is to have a calm mind. So it doesn't matter in which way you approach it. If you try to make your body relaxed, your mind will also relax. If you try to calm down the mind, your body will also relax. So whenever you have a busy mind, your body will not be relaxed. And whenever your body isn't relaxed, your mind will be busy. Do you understand how powerful this piece of information is? Now you have a lot more to manipulate and a lot more understanding about why you feel the way you do. As I've said many times, nutrition is far more important than exercise. Modern society thinks that exercise is 50% of health and the other 50% is nutrition. The actual ratio is probably something like 98% nutrition to 2% exercise when it comes to what's actually making you healthy, what's important from a health perspective. People think that if you eat McDonald's and then you go exercise, that's all right. No, the effects of McDonald's are still there. The glyphosate didn't go away. The pesticides, the vegetable oils didn't go away. The lack of vitamins and minerals didn't go away. The exercise did nothing to address that. So nutrition is, again, far more important because you can't build cells from exercise. You build cells and you clean up cells, and everything in your body, all the energy you have, the entire body itself is made up of food. The focus should always be on what you're exposed to and what you're not exposed to. Expose yourself to good nutrition, to clean air, to the sun, to the earth, and then, and only then, start thinking about exercise. Okay, exercise isn't something that will make you healthy. Everything else will make you healthy. exercise is probably the last thing you should think about, because again, if you do these things, then this will come automatically. No healthy person will want to sit inside and do nothing. They'll be going out and walking and playing and doing whatever it is that they enjoy doing outside. Remember, human beings living in nature won't even think about exercise because they'll be getting exercise regardless. It will never be a factor that they have to think about. It's just that because of modern society, because of our little nests that we've built everywhere, we don't move as much, and therefore we needed to create a word or a routine where we address that, and that is what exercise is. The reality of the situation is that no human being or animal will ever think about exercise because essentially they'll be doing that all day to some degree. With that said, gonna achieve excellent health? I know you can do it.